Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point, the network, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Happy to have you join the conversation on Free for All Friday, 888-589-8840. And I want to get to Jeff kind of on a breaking news story out of Alaska that you definitely want to know about. Just we'll give you an illustration of the kind of the range of the information, the depth, the breadth of the way in which we scour the landscape to bring you stories of extreme importance to the American people. But back to the Syria debacle just for a second. You know, it's interesting. The Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, they've had a muzzle put on them. They've been told not to say anything as the Syrian debate unfolds. The chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus has asked members, quote, to limit public comment. And the group OFA, that's Organizing for America, that was originally President Obama's campaign organization, and now it's a political arm of President Obama. It's an extension of him. It's a continuation of that same effort, and they're silent. They're not saying a word. They're not talking one way or another about the Syria deal. They have gone to ground. Now, Jeff, I want to bring my producer, Jeff Reed, in. And, Jeff, we've been following this nearly tragic story out of Alaska. And, again, it just indicates the kind of research that we are willing to invest as a team on behalf of our listening audience, because that we know that they look to us for really, really important stuff. So bring us up to date on what's going on up in Alaska.
Well, Brian, generally on Friday I try to bring you something that's a little more lighthearted on Friday. I mean, there's a lot of serious news, but unfortunately I could not do that this week.
I'm sorry to hear that.
There has been an assassination attempt on a mayor in a small town in Alaska.
Wow.
The mayor's name is Stubbs.
Yes.
Some people may be familiar with him. Been a mayor there for quite some time now. And apparently was attacked and has suffered, he's got a punctured lung, bruised hip, a long gash on the side, and a sternum fracture.
So is he going to survive?
Well, the last reports were that sitting up in bed and eating solid food again.
Oh, really? So what kind of solid food is Stubbs eating?
Well, he's got off the milk. And he's eating some solid Friskies, I believe it is.
Ah, Friskies. Yeah, Stubbs is a what?
A cat.
He's a cat.
A cat. They elected a cat as a mayor.
What town is this in Alaska?
I knew you were going to ask me. It's kind of I knew you were going to ask me. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's like Talkeetna.
Talkeetna.
It's a little small town in Alaska.
So the citizens of Talkeetna, whatever, in Alaska, they actually elected a cat. To be their mayor.
Yeah.
And Stubbs has been their mayor. He's been serving faithfully as the mayor of this small town in Alaska.
And this isn't Stubbs' first run-in. I mean, apparently he's running out of lives because he's had a few things. He's been shot with a BB gun before, fell into a cold fryer vat one time while they were changing the oil. Had some tough times, but he's always managed to pull through.
Politics, it's a game that's not for the faint of heart.
No, and
it ain't beanbag. I mean, there's a risk. You go into political life. Stubbs should have known this if he'd done his homework and done his reading and had kind of campaign advisors maybe to warn him about this. He'd have known. Look, this can be a risky business.
Well, actually, I was able to track down. I can't show the video because it's a little disturbing, but we do have the audio from the actual attack. If you want to hear that.
Okay, let's listen.
Central to all units. Officers require assistance.
Well, there you have it. And I'm willing to bet, Jeff, that we are the only radio network in America that's got that audio.
Yeah, we are asking for help to kind of track down the perpetrator. Last we known, he's kind of, they have a name, but they're not allowed to give it out because the dog is only 2 years old, which would only make him 14. So he's still underage,
you got to have some kind of limit to. I mean, you can't prosecute kids under a certain age, so you got to do the same thing, I would think, with dogs. If he's only 2, you got to cut him some slack.
You know what's amazing though? This cat actually has its own Twitter account and Facebook and quite a bit of following.
Well, this isn't going to hurt. This isn't going to hurt that.
Yeah.
All right, so Stubbs is recuperating
and is doing better
and feeling better, and the prospect is that he will actually be able to return to office before long. So
Right. You won't see that on the mainstream.
no, you won't. And that's why people tune in to Focal Point, because you hear stuff here you don't hear anywhere else. All right, Jeff, thank you for that. And turning to another piece of really good news, we're glad to hear that Stubbs is on the mend. But, these abortion regulations have been resulting in the closing of abortion clinics all over America. Something in the neighborhood of 50 abortion clinics have closed over the last year. I'm looking at a story here out of Iowa where abortions in Iowa have dropped 30% in the last 5 years. And here's a piece on the Huffington Post. Anti-abortion laws take a dramatic toll on clinics nationwide. So the Huffington Post wringing their hands. More than 50 abortion clinics across the country have closed or stopped offering the procedure since a heavy wave of legislative attacks on providers began in 2010. At least 54 abortion providers across 27 states have shut down or ended their abortion services in the past 3 years. So that's our winnable war moment for the day. Huffington Post, 54 abortion clinics have closed down in the last 3 years. They're celebrating the closure of one in College Station, Texas tomorrow. Pro-lifers gathering from as far away as Australia. They're going to gather in College Station, home of Texas A&M, to celebrate the closure of the controversial Planned Parenthood Abortion Center in Bryan, Texas. In fact, I think that's the one that Abby Johnson served at before she left the abortion industry. So some good news, winnable war on the Sanctity of Life front. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to David in Columbus, Ohio. David, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, Brian, you're Barack Obama talking about when you go into Syria. And, we kill more babies in this country every day. Like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3,000 babies a day are dying through abortion. It used to be up around 4,000. So, yeah, we're making progress. But for the 3,000 babies that are dying every day, we got a long ways to go yet. And, in Luke chapter 10, verse 25, on one occasion, an expert in law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. Then he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied and gave the story of the Good Samaritan, about the priest walking by the man that had been beaten and robbed and left for dead, and also the Levite who walked by him and didn't do anything. And then the Good Samaritan comes along and helps the man, loads him up, takes him in to a place and gives him help and does what we should all do to help someone who's been beaten and robbed. And at the end, the expert in the law replied, Jesus asked him, well, which one of these three do you think was the neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robber? And the expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. And the point I'd like to make is, these babies that are being led away to their death, we should speak up for them and do something to help them. And
all right, David. Well, listen, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your faithfulness to stand on the front lines. And, as we're seeing the efforts of David and other pro-lifers who are taking a stand against the destruction of human life, we are slowly winning that battle for the hearts and minds of the American people.
Here's